Hello, Mr. Slizzard. Yes, yes. I have heard the news too. I believe it is time to write the American government and tell them that the Germans have discovered a nuclear bomb. And if we don't do something soon, they're gonna nuke us.
President Roosevelt. Some recent work by Mr. Szilard and Fermi leads me to believe that the element of uranium may be used to construct extremely powerful bombs of a new type. Dropped on any port, it would very well destroy the whole surrounding area.
The Yalta Conference occurred in February 1945, and it was a series of discussions between FDR, Stalin, and Churchill, and they were trying to figure out what the Allied powers were going to be doing moving forward. The U.S. was concerned with its war in Japan, as well as its war in Germany, but it was fighting two wars almost simultaneously and wanted assistance in Japan. So, Stalin agreed to send aid to the U.S., but only after Germany had fully surrendered. And then they also agreed that once Germany had fully surrendered, it would be divided up into 4 zones and each separately controlled. And all of Eastern Europe would have its own free elections.
In July of 1945, the United States detonated the first ever nuclear device at the Trinity site in New Mexico. This led directly to the dropping of the nuclear bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima and the continued development of the atomic bomb.
Gentlemen, I think it's time to kick some Japanese ass. So, is Poland gonna be commie, yay or nay?
Nay. Why, of course, yes.
But like, communism is bad.
I beg to differ. It's the very most efficient form of governance, where the people have everything.
So,
Well,
because the Japanese aren't gonna surrender unless we bomb them.
I support this.
Good man, good man. We're gonna bomb them. And even if we try to invade Manchuria, we're still gonna bomb them, and we're gonna get all of Japan. For
Well,
ourselves.
what do you intend to do with Japan?
Make them not communist. Hello, Mr. Churchill.
Hello, Mr. Truman.
I've heard the Germans are developing a nuclear bomb.
I have already heard this, and I have started a program for developing an atomic bomb.
Okay. How about we work together on that?
I would not be opposed to that, but what about Stalin?
He needs to be kept in the dark. Those damn communists are gonna be the death of us all.
Sure.
We have done this to achieve unconditional surrender. The Japanese have refused to unconditionally surrender to the American forces, and thus, in order to save American lives on Japanese shores, we shall drop a nuclear bomb in order to achieve that surrender, which may end this horrible conflict once and for all. As you can see, we have a bigger button than them, as we have the only button. We will now proceed in pressing it.
The government created awareness about atomic weapons. Fallout shelters and air raid drills became a normality.
It was such a powerful fear, in fact, that it was even used as fuel for political campaign ads.
To make a world in which all of God's children can live, or to go into the dark, we must either love each other or we must die.
Vote for President Johnson on November 3rd. The stakes are too high for you to stay home.
In 1964, Lyndon B. Johnson aired the Little Daisy commercial. It aired only once, but it changed campaign ads forever. It struck so much fear into the hearts of Americans, and it helped lead him to an easy victory. It was so powerful because it pulled on the heartstrings of American citizens who were fearing in their everyday lives nuclear warfare and wanted to protect their children.
America effectively took control of the Marshall Islands in 1944 after crushing the Japanese forces located there. After the war in December 1945, Truman declared that it was necessary to test atomic weapons to measure their effects on warships and chose Bikini as the place to test them. Military governor of the Marshall Islands, Ben H. Wyatt, traveled to Bikini to convince the Bikinians to leave the atoll. He told them that they would be testing atomic bombs for the good of mankind and to end all wars. The United States is then able to achieve the first subsurface detonation of a nuclear device at Bikini Atoll in June of 1946. The United States then continued testing at Inuiatak Atoll during the months of April and May of 1948. In January of 1951, Truman announces that they will continue development and testing of a hydrogen bomb, and the first test occurs in January the following year in Nevada.
Y'all need to get out of here, this here atoll. We doing some testing on some nuclear bombs.
This is our land.
I dare say. Y'all better get out of here. Scram! Come on.
Duck and cover. He did what we all must learn to do. You and you and you and you. Duck and cover.
Be sure and remember what
Bergie!
the turtle just did, friends, because every one of us must remember to do the same thing.
Now you see, these ducks listened. And these ducks didn't. And then there's that.
The developments and testings of nuclear devices was at the same time that other countries were developing their own nuclear weapons, especially the Soviet Union, posing the biggest threat to the United States. Nuclear weaponry and devices are still seeing development and testing today by a variety of different countries trying to further increase their arsenal and their power.
And